Begin the subcommittee's first hearing of the 119th Congress. I'd like to introduce myself. Derek Van Orden. I think I speak loud enough about that microphone, just figured that out. I'm a retired Navy SEAL Senior Chief. I'm the longest serving enlisted member of the military to ever be elected to Congress. I've used every educational program that the Department of Defense offers, including our VRNE, and I use the GI Bill to help educate my children. I get all my health care through the VA. I love the VA. I love the folks that give me my medical care. Welcome, ma'am. Oh, sorry. Good morning. I love our health care providers. I love the folks that have helped me get my education. And what I despise about the VA is the bureaucracy. And we waste billions and billions of dollars supporting the bureaucracy of the VA. And it is my intent to stop that. Every single dollar that is wastefully spent is one that doesn't go to a veteran, either their health care or their education or our Gold Star families, the benefits that they have earned by sacrificing their family. And essentially, this is Groundhog Day. Mr. Barrett chaired the subcommittee yesterday. It was a closed session, so I won't describe it in detail, but essentially what we've identified, again, is billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of waste that the VA is responsible for through either inadequate or no planning at all. And that's got to stop. I would be remiss not to mention my great friend, Mike, who is no longer the ranking member. He's moved on to appropriations. I don't know why you'd want to go there, but I'd like to welcome Mr. Pappas. We had a great meeting in private discussing your priorities, which would be veterans homelessness, and we'll be going to a field hearing to your district. You haven't heard this yet, but this is not a bipartisan committee. This is a nonpartisan committee. And we started that. Mike and I had a great relationship, and I expect the same. I can't believe Morgan's back. Good to see him. Mr. Barrett, and ma'am, it's so wonderful to have you here. So I want to make sure that we follow through with some things that we started in 118th. So from the Senator Elizabeth Dole 21st Century Veterans Healthcare and Benefits Improvement Act, we're able to pass improvements to education benefits, homelessness prevention benefits, USERA, and reduce the red tape of the VA. We'll hear from the VA today. We have lots more to do to this, and I want to make sure that we are going to refocus the Veterans Affairs Administration on veterans and not the Veterans Affairs Administration. We're going to talk about state of education services and the Department of Veterans Affairs. Since 2020, the number of employees at the education services at VA's headquarters in DC has nearly doubled, growing from 102 to 185 in 2024. So I'm going to say it again. The headquarters staff has nearly doubled, but the actual budget has only increased it went from $1.5 billion to $12.1 billion, and that is a tremendous amount of money. So if we're spending all this money and we're increasing the bureaucracy and not sending that to veterans benefits, that is a problem. So I swear to God, this is like Groundhog Day. I'm just going to bulletize some things here so that everybody understands for the record. So we have seen this in this hearing room. Contract and oversight mistakes with the digital GI Bill to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. VA bureaucrats going rogue with risk-based surveys leading to schools backing out from accepting the GI Bill. So the antithesis of what the VA is supposed to be doing, they're actually chasing veterans away from getting educated. An absolutely foolish interpretation of a Supreme Court case that will add nearly $10 billion to the deficit over the next decade and not help anybody. A VA proposing a rule to the Federal Registry using the wrong form, causing schools to panic. Paperwork. Government employees reinterpreting congressional law and kicking out religious schools from our GI Bill. Unacceptable. Former head of education services giving out his contact information to school certifying officials because they had so many communications issues that needed to be solved. And the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's going to stop. Like, this is going to stop. I'm very excited to have a new secretary of the Veterans Affairs. Dennis was a friend of mine. I think he was undermined and subverted by a lot of people sitting over here, permanent bureaucrats. I firmly believe that. Dennis wanted to do what was right, and his feet were knocked out from underneath him by the permanent ruling class in Washington, D.C., and those are not elected officials. And it's going to stop. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that every single dollar that is allocated by this Congress goes to help a veteran, not a bureaucrat. And so help me God, that is my sole intent. And if I don't know how I could be more clear. So, Mr. Pappas, that's how this is going to go. And I yield to the ranking member for any comments you may have, sir.
Well, I want to thank you first for your service in Congress, but also to our great nation, and just the spirit by which you approach your role here as chair of this subcommittee. I was on this subcommittee for my first 2 terms in Congress. Really pleased to be back and look forward to developing a good, strong working relationship and continuing the work that you did with Mike Levin for the last couple years. So I want to thank you for holding this session here today. I think we can all agree that the GI Bill is a landmark law, and I look forward to the work that we will do today together to ensure that student veterans are provided the level of quality that they deserve. But I think we can't hold this hearing today without recognizing what's transpiring, the pressures on federal programs and certainly on the federal workforce as well, dedicated people that meet the needs of veterans each and every day. So I want to take a trip back to late 2024. The final 2 hearings of the Veterans Affairs Committee were on federal agency overreach and poor performance due to staffing shortages at the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program. And since the inauguration of President Trump, the VA has been thrown into chaos, as other federal agencies have been thrown into chaos. Hiring freezes, pushing staff to quit, suspending grants, eliminating programs that veterans with disabilities rely on. And frankly, this Congress hasn't stepped up to its authority and stepped up to the plate in a way that I think we should be at this moment. This is an authority that expert witnesses said would be used to restrain abuses in the executive branch. I'll give you a quote from a recent hearing. Quote, "Agencies are not permitted to misread their congressional charge and statutes, and their interpretation ought to be regarded with special skepticism when they purport to find sweeping new authorities in old statutes," end quote. That was Dr. Philip Wallach, senior fellow at AEI, testified before this committee on December 18th of last year. Yet today, agencies under President Trump's executive actions are finding all kinds of new ways to circumvent congressional oversight. Dr. Wallach further reminded this committee during his testimony after the Loper decision that many observers hope that these interventions can come from the executive branch, specifically political appointees in the upcoming Trump administration, notably Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who lead the recently conceived DOGE, argued in the Wall Street Journal that the court's recent ruling opens the door for the president to nullify thousands of regulations based on improper interpretations through non-enforcement and then review and rescission. It's not at all clear that this is a sound prescription. Instead, the remedy for excessive administrative power is a revitalization of congressional power, not just a different flavor of administrative power as overseen by a more aggressive court, end quote. Dr. Wallach concluded his testimony by emphasizing how members from both parties should rely on information and guidance provided by public service professionals at VA and push bipartisan legislation through Congress. He said, if that seems like pie-in-the-sky idea of how the House operates, then we all need to be asking how to make it work better. So I believe in the good work of this subcommittee and the role of our committee in legislating and in overseeing the department. None of us want unelected bureaucrats running wild, damaging systems, and compromising benefits for veterans. So I want to work with every member of this subcommittee to ensure that veterans are at the center of all of our efforts and that we are truly delivering the benefits that they have earned in a timely fashion. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your comments saying that this is a nonpartisan place for work, and I couldn't agree more. That's why we must do the job of oversight of federal agencies and programs, stand tall as a co-equal branch of government and not shrink from our responsibilities, especially when it comes to the end veteran. So regarding the hearing today, I look forward to VA providing more information on the implementation of the Elizabeth Dole Act and hearing from VA about plans for 2025 and beyond. And I do want to thank you most sincerely, Mr. Chairman, for the time, and I yield back and look forward to the next couple of years together.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. I appreciate several of your comments. I would like us to focus internally, sir. And I've done nothing over the last 2 years other than reminding the Biden administration that we are a co-equal branch of government. And I would remind you, sir, that President Trump has been in office for 3 weeks and I think a day. So let's look forward collectively to doing things great. And if we have concerns, I think we should address these. And so I'll now introduce the witness panel. Our first witness is Mr. Ken Smith, Acting Executive Director of Education Services at the Veterans Benefit Administration. Mr. Smith is accompanied by Mr. James Ruhlman. I got that right? Deputy Director of Education Services at the Veterans Benefits Administration. I'll ask the witnesses to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Mr. Smith, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to deliver your testimony on behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, sir. Chairman Van Orden, Ranking Member Pappas, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss VA's delivery of education benefits to our veterans and their families. Accompanying me today is Mr. James Ruhlman, Deputy Director of Education Service. I understand and am read in on the concerns this committee has raised on various issues in this space. One such issue that came to my attention was your staff's recent visit to our regional processing office in Muskogee. While there, they observed the processing of a claim related to the Supreme Court's recent Rudisill decision. I understand that it did not go as planned. While the claim was processed, it took too long and encountered several obstacles. Your staff heard concerns directly from claims processors, noting the very complex instructions that they, as claims processors, are expected to follow. Our team also described how claims go back and forth several times before being fully completed, adding to the delays and aging of claims. We are taking immediate actions to engage claims processors who are working these claims to gather their feedback. VBA is evaluating current resources and tools, fine-tuning procedures, and exploring additional training opportunities, as well as enforcing accountability throughout the process. Despite some challenges, I want to highlight that VA has made some great strides over the last several years to improve benefit delivery and customer experience. VA has automated approximately 50% of certificates of eligibility for new applicants, allowing veterans to start their educational pursuits faster. Supplemental claims are currently hovering near 70% automated, up from 40% in March 2021. We're also working to modernize our systems. In July 2024, VA took first tangible steps to move 87% of education benefit payments off of the 50-year-old legacy COBOL system. Just this month, VA processed its first non-Chapter 33 claims on the DGI platform. We are on track to complete the migration from the legacy BDN system by November 2025. With the recent passage of the Elizabeth Dole Act, VA has momentum to make necessary improvements to assist veterans in obtaining full-time employment. Participants in the prior program overwhelmingly recommended vet tech to other veterans. VA's proactive efforts to improve customer experience are making a difference across the board. VBA's customer experience survey trust score responses indicate 87% of respondents express confidence about enrolling in schools to use their education benefits, up from 72% in '22, and 85.6% trusted they will receive their education benefits, up from 75% in 2022. VA also recognizes that strengthening partnerships with external entities expands the Veteran Support Network. We will meet regularly with the leadership of the National Association of State Approving Agencies and school certifying officials. Our collaboration with the SAAs has improved the risk-based surveys, resulting in improved accountability, and VA is currently approving new programs in approximately 5 days. School certifying officials are important partners serving as the first touch point for veterans enrolling in school. These SCOs overwhelmingly endorse improvements to the DGI Enrollment Manager, which replaced the legacy VA Once program in March 2023 and has already processed 10 million enrollments. In calendar year 2025, VA will address multiple high priorities to include continuing DGI modernization, improving the Rudisill review for 1 million potential beneficiaries, and enacting the Medi-education-related provisions of the Elizabeth Dole Act. We will also implement recommendations from the Office of Inspector General and Government Accountability Office. Mr. Chairman, I share this committee's mission of working for veterans and ensuring that VA effectively delivers the very benefits that veterans have earned and deserve. I commit to you that I will work to get it right, remain transparent in our efforts, and to not shy away from the challenges. My team and I will always put veterans and beneficiaries first. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my statement. My colleague and I are prepared to answer any questions you or other members of the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The written statement of Mr. Smith will be entered into the hearing record. We're now going to proceed with the questioning. So you're new here. You two are. So we do 5 minutes, not 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Cool? Keep it on track. We can always do a second round of questioning if you guys are not satisfied with the answers from the witnesses, okay? Yeah, talking to McGarvey over there. All right, I now recognize the ranking member Pappas for 5 minutes to question the witnesses.
Okay, let's see how I do
Proceed,
here.
sir. You'll be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the testimony, Mr. Smith. And our office and so many of my colleagues' offices have been flooded with constituent calls over the last few days and few weeks. We've literally heard from thousands of people in my district in New Hampshire who are concerned about sweeping executive orders from the administration, including those that are impacting VA. The orders, along with unclear guidance, have, I think, shaken confidence in the ability of, or the understanding that VA is going to deliver on its promises to our veterans. I've heard that directly from the veteran community in New Hampshire. So we were recently made aware of a list of positions at VA that are not eligible for Elon Musk's so-called fork-in-the-road retirement plan. One of the positions is a VRE counselor. You may be aware that I sent a letter to the secretary asking for this position to be exempt from the hiring freeze. So my question to you is, if the position is so mission critical that these individuals aren't eligible for the retirement offer, why are these positions subject to a hiring freeze?
Thank you for the question, sir. There's a separate executive order that we're operating under that implemented a government-wide hiring freeze, and we are following that order.
Do you expect that VA will request an exemption from the freeze to hire staff members that can service veterans' economic opportunity benefits, including positions that are needed to administer VRE?
I am not sure what the secretary will choose to do, but I certainly await his guidance.
Okay. If an exemption were granted and wait times were not granted and wait times could increase as a result, would the administration reconsider an exemption as soon as possible to minimize the impact to disabled veterans who are seeking employment?
We absolutely want to minimize impact to the extent possible, and we'll work with you and the appropriators to make sure that we have that we can fill to our budget ceiling once we've reached the position where we can begin hiring again.
So, to your knowledge, have any VRE connected positions been rescinded?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. And what, if anything, is VA's plan to ensure that veterans don't experience delays in accessing these earned benefits?
Speaking for the education delivery of benefits, our positions, our claims processing positions are also exempted as claims processors. We continue to execute against the mission with the staffing that we have. And our high rate of automation is supporting that as well, allowing us to deliver those critical benefits.
So I want to get to Rudisill. You brought it up in your testimony, a population of over 1 million veterans and their dependents who are potentially impacted by the decision which established that eligible veterans and their dependents can access up to 48 months of education benefits if they serve during 2 periods, typically before and after 9/11. So how is the president's hiring freeze impacting VA's ability to begin reviewing these records?
We are reviewing all of the Rudisill claims with existing staff, so I would say that we have the staff on board to conduct this review. Right now, we are in the midst of our spring hiring surge, so we are working to ensure that we are delivering benefits for veterans and family members who are in school, and then we'll shift to Rudisill. We prioritize those claims so that we are making decisions for those that are in school and low on remaining entitlement so that they can continue their educational pursuits.
So with respect to the review, in a briefing January 7th, it was reported that it would take approximately 22 months to complete the review because existing examiners at regional processing offices have the ability to conduct this work, only have the ability to conduct the work during non-peak enrollment periods. So it seems that waiting to hear about eligibility for 22 months is not centering on veterans and putting them first. Is there any way that that time frame can be expedited, and what would you need to get that review done in a much more timely fashion?
As I said, our current method is to prioritize those claims that where the veteran or family member is in school or low on entitlement. That's, I think, the best we can offer at the moment.
Would additional staffing help you conduct that review in a timelier fashion, less than 22 months?
These are very complex determinations. I am not certain that additional staffing at this point would help.
Okay, my time's up. I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Pappas. I now recognize Mr. Barrett from the great state of Michigan, which is directly across from Lake Wisconsin.
Is that anywhere near the Gulf of America, Mr. Chairman?
Very close, sir.
Okay.
I'm glad someone got that.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about these risk-based surveys that are done and what constraint that's had, the downstream effect of that on veterans being able to access education that really fits their needs and what they're seeking. Can you give us an update as to the status of these risk-based surveys and whether they're being used in a strategic way to disincentivize educational institutions from participating in GI Bill and making that accessible to veterans?
Thank you for the question, sir. I'll give a short answer and then hand it off to Mr. Ruhlman, who's much more an expert on risk-based surveys. I will say that we do not target any specific schools. We use a data-driven approach to determine who ought to be reviewed under these surveys and ensure that veterans are receiving the training and not defrauded of their benefits. Mr. Ruhlman?
The purpose of the risk-based surveys is to provide health checks and fix any problems before veterans become at risk and end up being impacted by a school closure or not being delivered with the quality of education that they deserve and expect. We do work closely with our SAA partners to revise that model. We've actually done it for 3 years in a row, and we're currently in discussions with the state approving agencies at their midwinter conference in Crystal City, which is going on this week. And we're going to continue to revise those models. We've seen decreases year after year as we have revised that model from about 1,300 in fiscal year 2023, about 250 in fiscal year 2024, and less than 200 this year, and we'll continue to do that. But it is not the goal of either VA or the state approving agencies that are doing the risk-based surveys to drive schools out of the market or to decrease the number of opportunities available. And we remain committed to working with our partners to make sure that we're looking at the right schools and not overburdening other schools that are in good shape.
But is it also true that someone not involved with VA, not a part of your organization or anything else, can still prompt a complaint that would trigger this review that you've described, the risk-based survey that you've described?
Complaints can drive the selection of a school for a risk-based survey. We actually have a minimum of 2 complaints that are needed in order to possibly do that, and that's actually done also in combination with a number of other factors, such as rapid growth in the student population enrolled in a program, the payments per student, 8515 violations, 9010 violations, any other serious actions or scrutiny by state or federal agencies. And we do negotiate the selection of those schools with the state approving agencies. So we don't expect a school to be selected solely because of a single or even two anonymous complaints. That was something that was at least partially responsible for the 1,300 number in fiscal year 2023. But that's one of the things that we've really focused on, along with no longer looking at the transfer or retention or persistence rates, which tended to target community colleges and two-year feeder schools for the 4 years.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. The chair now recognizes Morgan McGarvey from the great state of Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be back here this Congress with you all. Thank you all for being here today. Look, I think one of the things that makes this committee a fun committee to serve on is that we all agree. We all agree that we want to get our veterans, the brave men and women who are willing to put on a uniform and sacrifice everything for us, the benefits they have earned and they were promised. So I'm glad we're having this hearing because we need to focus on how to better serve our veterans. I also want to make sure that we're putting all the focus on the right place, which is getting these veterans their services, and how do we actually do that? Because that is what we want to have happen. Come back with me to Louisville, Kentucky. I'll take you in the VA, I'll take you in VFW 1170, I'll take you anywhere. And you're going to hear some similar things. One, a lot of veterans do appreciate when the VA works for them, and there are things at the VA that are working for them. Then they're going to tell you about the things at the VA that aren't working for them. We're here today talking about education benefits on this committee, and I think you would hear a lot of things. Speed, that they're not getting these benefits quickly enough. You're going to probably hear complaints about confusing jargon, confusing things that happen, like how do we jump through these hoops? How do we get these benefits we were supposed to have earned? And then, of course, that ease of access kind of goes in with the confusing jargon. How are we getting veterans what they need? So when we talk about the VA and the bureaucracy at the VA, I think we can admit we all want there to be efficiency in the VA. We want these services to be timely delivered, but I don't want to just scapegoat every person who works at the VA, because we have a lot of really talented public servants who are at the VA getting our veterans the care and the things they need. And so when you look at what's happening, even though we're only 3 weeks into the Trump administration, when you look at the executive orders on the hiring freezes, that applies to everybody. Even we've heard from doctors who've had a hiring freeze, and I know we're not talking about healthcare and VA today, but that certainly plays into what we're talking about. They're talking about drastically altering some of these policies in an effort to starve out some of our dedicated public servants and cut the workforce at the VA. I think we're here with the right intention, but I want to make sure we are here with the right focus. And when you look at Congress, it's the real complaint here is that we need to improve the policies and procedures in VA. Let's do it. Let's work together to make those changes. I'm totally for it. But if we're concerned that railing against the VA is just pretext to begin a Doge death spiral with the VA, where you gut the workforce in the name of efficiency, leading to slower benefit delivery and more backlog for our vets, then let's remember who we're here to serve. And so I think about these changes. One, you mentioned something I want to get into, Mr. Smith. You said that additional staffing wouldn't necessarily help. One thing I hear from veterans is even if we go in the name of, look, we use technology in all of our daily lives. I hear from a lot of veterans that at the end of the day, they want a person at the other end of the line eventually. What would help? You said staffing won't help. What will help us clear this backlog and get veterans the benefits they need and deserve?
Thank you for the question, and I certainly appreciate your comments. We are very focused in improving our trust scores, including all of the elements that you just mentioned, as well as ensuring that veterans feel valued. That's a key element of our trust score. In terms of what will help, I would say we need better procedures. We need better job aids. We should not have to require our claims processors to do many multiple tasks without some supporting like templates. And I think we can look at technology as an enabler as well. We are not there right now. We need to take a look at things within our control in terms of those policies, procedures, job aids, and tools. Issue some reinforcement to our folks who are 1 month or 6 weeks into processing these root-of-seal claims on a very steep learning curve, and then reassess and go forward.
Thanks. We're short on time, and so I just want to say I appreciate that. I do want to make sure that we are getting our veterans what they need. If some of that is technology, that is fantastic. If we need efficiency, we need better off. But we need to recognize what's going on right now. There are 1.7 million veterans who've become eligible for additional GI benefits. The VBA is already using overtime and seasonal capacity. So thanks so much, and we'll keep on this.
Mr. McGarvey, if you'd like, we'll do a second round of questions. I understand Mr. Pappas would like to do that already. So thank you very much. The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes our newest member from the Northern Mariana Islands, Ms. King-Hines, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to learn a little bit more about veteran education services. So I come from the Northern Mariana Islands, and our issue with regards to veterans is just access. And so I'm curious to see what the program currently does to ensure that equitable access for veterans living in remote areas like the CNMI with regards to the digital GI Bill platform is ensures basically that our veterans have the same access.
Yes, thank you for the question. All U.S. service members establish eligibility to education benefits based on the merits of their service. I'd like to ask Mr. Ruhlman to talk just a little bit about getting schools approved in remote areas.
Sure. Prior to this hearing, I actually did look to see how many schools are approved in the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas. There's one college on Saipan, and that's it. To the extent that you have other training providers that are interested in seeking GI Bill approval, we can work with you to get them GI Bill approved in order to have more opportunities in the Northern Marianas for veterans who do live there, and we'd love to work with you on that. We also do have a number of programs which are online, which could be accessed, and those, of course, can be accessed worldwide. But really, we need to have more schools offering programs, whether that's technical schools, degree-granting programs, excuse me, employers who have on-the-job training programs. That's one of the ways that probably you could increase the number, would be to find some employers, whether that's electricians, plumbers, really any of the trades, skilled trades that have OJT programs could be approved in the Northern Marianas as well, to allow people to use their benefits and to gain skills which will help them get better paying jobs.
All right, thank you. So it was raised that a lot of times, right, our vets really would like to be able to have access to a real life person to be able to work through some of these applications. And in remote areas like the CNMI, or rural areas in particular, right, access to the internet is a challenge. And what have you done with regards to just outreach to these communities to ensure, right, we're talking about digitizing a platform, but in remote communities like ours, sometimes access to digital platforms is a challenge. And so what outreach work has been done to ensure that remote and rural communities just have a fighting chance basically at being able to avail some of these services?
Mr. Ruhlman, could you answer? I'd like to ask Mr. Ruhlman to answer that question.
Most of our outreach is done using a number of different approaches, but the bulk of it is through email, websites, and it is electronic. I'm sure we'd have people who would love to do additional outreach in person, but that would require additional travel funding. I'm not sure what else we can do in the short run, but I would love to have further discussions about what we could do to provide better service to individuals in the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, as well as other more remote places within the United States, because we do want to reach those individuals as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair now recognizes Ms. Ramirez, my dear friend from the great state of Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman. It's good to have Midwestern representation in committee. And I want to thank the ranking member also for holding today's hearing and the witnesses for joining us today. By the title of this hearing, I'd like to believe we're all in agreement that education is an important tool to lift up our veterans and provide them with opportunities. And while I know that my colleagues across the aisle have turned their backs on commitment to honor inclusion because of the current administration's attacks on diversity, on equity and inclusion programs, I do have some news for them. Turning their backs on a commitment to diversity is turning their backs on veterans. Veterans are diverse, and I'm proud to represent 20,727 diverse veterans of Illinois' 3rd Congressional District. Let's be clear. Then when we're talking about veterans, we're talking about women, we're talking about people of color, we're talking about first-generation veterans, we're talking about low-income veterans, we're talking about LGBTQI+ veterans, and deported veterans. They're all veterans. And each veteran is to be celebrated in their diversity and entitled to full access to their benefits that they've earned, and we promise them. And that's why I take such a responsibility to provide careful oversight of our education services seriously. It's our job. And we can't let attempts to dismantle veteran services or deny the unique needs of diverse veterans in the name of efficiency derail us from our duty. In fact, if anything, it should make us fight even harder to defend the progress we've made in serving veterans more effectively. And so with that, I want to turn to some questions. The GI Bill comparison tool currently allows veterans to search for schools that have a particular population focus, such as women's college, for example, Alaska Native serving institutions, Hispanic serving institutions, we call them HSIs, or historically Black colleges and universities, the HBCUs. Mr. Smith, will the VA remove this information as a search feature for veterans in order to comply with Trump's administration's executive orders ending diversity, equity, and inclusion programming?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. 1 week on the job in, I have not gotten any instructions to that end, but I'd be happy to bring something back to you.
Mr. Smith, I would appreciate that. I certainly want to make sure that I know what search information is available and not available as veterans are looking at schools. So we'll follow up with you. But let me ask you another follow-up question. As you're searching, if the VA would remove the ability to search institutions by diversity characteristics, how would that actually interfere with a veteran's freedom to choose a school of their liking? You want me to repeat it?
Please.
Yeah. So I've asked you if the VA is looking at removing this information, the search feature that allows people to look at a school, based on, is it a women's college? Is it an Alaska Native serving institution? Is it an HSI or HBCU? And my question to you was, is the VA going to remove the search feature? And my follow-up question to you, because you're going to get me that information, is if the VA removes the ability to search institutions by diversity characteristics, how will this interfere with a veteran's freedom to choose a school of their liking?
I believe that would force them to use another search method for identifying schools of their choice. But that's my speculation.
What search method would they be using? Google, or like what?
That would be my guess.
So they'd have to start Googling when they already were able to do that through the system that they use. But now we're saying, we don't want you to have that choice, so we're going to have you have to go look at other formats. So in some ways, they would impact their ability and accessibility to be able to look through the system they already have in place, correct?
It would be a two-step process.
making it harder for veterans. All right, well, let me follow up. This past week, my district office has been taking calls from concerned constituents who are unclear about how the Trump's administration executive orders on funding and programs may impact the processing of their GI claims and their GI benefits. Let me ask you one last question, Mr. Smith. Since these executive orders have been announced, have veterans reached out concerned about the impact of the changes on their education services and benefits?
I'm unaware of any call traffic specifically tagged to the executive orders, but I could certainly research that.
Do you have more calls this last week than you had before?
I'm unsure what our call volumes are right now.
Can you check on that for me? Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady yields back. Interestingly enough, we have a senior enlisted guy here, we've got a warrant officer, and a commissioned officer, right? Correct? Army Intel? It's oxymoron right there, I'll tell you, to be honest with you. And I would like to just publicly state that, from my perspective, I don't recall a single instance where we cared about the color of someone's skin, their gender, their religion, or what they do in the privacy of their own home. And I think we all need to get back to that position, and I can affirmatively speak with confidence from the Trump administration, from their perspective, that they don't care about the color of your skin, your gender, your religion, or what you do in the privacy of their home. And that they will be approaching, as will this subcommittee, from a absolutely 100% neutral perspective. And if anyone chooses to not do that, then they are no longer welcome on the subcommittee. And that's how we are doing our business. That is cut and dry. And that is the formal policy. And Mr. Pappas and I haven't even discussed this, but we're not doing this, correct?
Doing what?
We're not going to look at people through these individual lenses.
Oh, happy to have a conversation about
Okay.
what the VA needs to do to reach underserved veterans.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
there's a legitimate concern about DEI going away and us not being able to seek out those veterans that deserve and need assistance. So I think that's the concern that Ms. Ramirez was expressing, and I support her, her questions.
Don't get me wrong, I have tremendous amount of respect for you, ma'am. I just want to tell you that our perspective as veterans from the entire stratified levels of the military is we just don't see things that way. And we serve, Tom, how long are you in?
22 years, Mr. Chairman.
I was 26. How about you, Mr. Amade? Okay, so we got 60 years of military experience here. I'm just saying that we don't see it that way. And if there's anything we can potentially do better to reach all of our veterans, you had that flag on your shoulder, I'm with you. Just to be clear, so we're on the same sheet. Very well. The chair now recognizes Mr. Subcommittee from the great state of Arizona for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the major focuses that I've had since getting here to Congress and being on this committee is the transition from active duty service into civilian life, and also what that means for them in terms of job opportunities. I have an advisory council that I formed 2 years ago, where I have 20 veterans in my district, and they range from enlisted and being in for 4 years all the way up to retired generals of 35 plus years of service. So it helps me get a real sense of what the transition looks like, and it looks differently for every person out there. But this is one of the main things that I hear in our community, that the different opportunities that veterans can have. So with my bill, the Senator Elizabeth Dole 21st Century Veterans Healthcare and Benefits Improvement Act that you mentioned just a little bit ago, now being law, I look forward to the many educational opportunities for veterans that will be created as a result of this enactment. From commercial driver's licenses to careers in computer science, this bill puts veterans and their loved ones first by extending popular programs like the Vet Tech, eliminating red tape for more opportunities in education for veterans, and expanding the FRI scholarship benefits for surviving spouses and those who remarry as well. So I look forward to continuing to hear more from you all on how the VA is putting our veterans first through their educational journey. So in this particular topic, Mr. Smith, as you know, VetTech is an important higher education program that has put thousands of veterans into high-paying jobs across the country. So I look forward to seeing this continued. What does the VA plan to? When does the VA begin to enroll veterans in this program again?
Thank you for the question, sir. We are still working on an implementation plan I do not have a date yet, but I would be happy to bring that back to you in Congress once we have
Is
it.
there a sense of urgency on this? This is an important aspect of the overall bill. You know, this has been a pilot program that was highly successful, so I'm hoping that we have a sense of priority and urgency on this one.
Yes, sir.
And on the, a provision in the legislation states that 4,000 students can be enrolled annually. Do you believe this number will be reached this year? And if you expect Congress will need to increase that number in the future?
Again, I think I need to get some understanding of what the implementation timeline looks like. We are looking carefully at improving the payment processing systems and our ability to manage this through our digital GI Bill platform to ensure that we have payment integrity and are reaching the right veterans. So once we get all of that lined out within an implementation timeline, I would be happy to talk to you more.
And I'm very interested in talking about that specific timeline. The federal government isn't known for its expediency, so I think we need to really make sure that this is moving quickly and swiftly. We have, it's 4,000 a year. In my district alone, we have almost 80,000 veterans. That's my district alone, one of 435 in the nation. So that in my mind, there's every reason to reach the 4,000, and hoping that you come back and request for more, because this is a highly successful program that we need to make sure that happens. What about other aspects of the bill, like the Fry Scholarship? How's that going, and where are we on that?
Yes, sir. So the extension of delimiting dates for Fry Scholars, that is already completed because that was something that we could handle in just regulation. So we are moving forward with that.
I'll ask the same follow-up question. What's the timeline on this? What are you thinking?
Ask Mr. Ruhlman to give me some help with that. I believe it's already done.
Yeah, there are actually two Fry provisions. The first one, Section 201, which has to do with a temporary expansion of Fry Scholarship benefits, and that's for terms that start on August 1st, 2025. We do expect right now to be receiving applications as of April 1st for that, so it should be before anyone has the chance to enroll and use those benefits. For Section 202, which has to do with the delimiting date and remarriage, we can actually handle that procedurally because it's not something where it's determined by the system, the computer system. So that one actually was implemented on January 30th.
So basically, we're ready to roll on this, right?
Yes.
We're now ensured that providers and students are able to participate in these programs, and specifically the Fry Scholarship. That's ready to go.
For the delimiting date and remarriage, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm out of time, but I would like to just get a sense of the timeline for the vet tech, please. As specific as you can, and with specific metrics on the goals of reaching the participants on there, and also on the remaining parts of the Fry Scholarship. So thank you. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes Mr. Amade for 5 minutes. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your previous comments were exactly spot on. The only thing we care about is the American flag on our right shoulder sleeve. Right. And as an Army veteran myself and a member of this committee, I'm deeply troubled by the ongoing failures of the VA Education Services bureaucracy to efficiently deliver on the commitments we owe to those who have served. The post-9/11 GI Bill was meant to expand opportunity, but today bureaucratic failures at the VA are delaying benefits, increasing costs, and making it harder for veterans to access the education they've earned. The botched digital GI Bill rollout is a prime example. What was supposed to streamline benefits ballooned from $470 million to nearly $1 billion. That's embarrassing in the private sector. That should be embarrassing in the government as well. And it remains plagued by delays. Meaningless burdens like excessive risk-based surveys are forcing legitimate schools to drop GI Bill eligibility. And the disastrous Rudisill expansion could cost taxpayers $10 billion, with VA bureaucracy unilaterally adding to the federal deficit. We need accountability, not excuses. Now, the VA must work for the veteran, not against them. Those who served our nation deserve the best. Now, Mr. Smith, the VA is set on November 2025 to finally complete transitioning VA education benefits to the long-delayed digital GI Bill platform. This timeline has already slipped before, So what is the VA doing to ensure that the digital GI Bill program stays on track for this release?
Thank you for the question, sir. And let me say first, you have my commitment to be accountable and to ensure that we're doing all we can to do right by veterans, this committee, and get it right for those that have earned the benefits. We are on track for November 2025 to be off the BDN, or the Benefits Delivery Network COBOL-based system. We have had a successful transition this month with our first non-Chapter 33 claims processing. We will move Chapter 35 dependents education assistance next month, and we are on track still with that overall deployment by November.
Well, it's been 55 days since Chairman Boss sent a letter demanding answers regarding the failed implementation of the digital GI Bill platform. So I'm just curious why the committee has not received a response.
I will have to get back to you, sir.
Have you seen the letter?
No, sir.
This was to the previous secretary. I'm just wondering if there was any transition period, from when you came in to see that letter.
I have not yet in the first week on the job, but I will certainly go back and look for that.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes themselves and the third party for 5 minutes. This sounds so silly, doesn't it? Mr. Smith, where is your predecessor?
Sir, Senior Executive Service is designed as a flexible.
Just tell me where he's at.
He's been reassigned to another business line.
Why would you suppose that is, Mr. Smith? The VA moves at its own speed. So I ask unanimous consent that this, from April 1st, 2023, this press release from the Department of Veterans Affairs is entered into the record. Without objection, so ordered. Okay, budget cut proposals would hurt veterans. This is from April 21st. This is what you said, that our budget cuts were going to threaten medical care for veterans. Didn't happen. Undermine access to telehealth. As a matter of fact, we expanded it. That didn't happen. Worsen wait times for benefits. That didn't happen. Prevent construction on healthcare facilities and veterans need. That didn't happen. Failed to honor the memory of all veterans. We actually increased the budget by $81 million for our cemeteries overseas. So, cut housing for veterans? No. Increase food insecurity for veterans? No. Deprive veterans of mental health, substance abuse, and other health services? No. Eliminate job training and support homeless veterans? No. Okay, this is still on your website. Okay, enough of this trash. So when we're talking, look, the Trump administration has been in office for 3 weeks and 1 day. That is still on your website, and it is a pack of political lies. Enough. I'm sick of this garbage, man. So in 2020, there were 657,928 veterans using education services. In 2024, there's over 900,000. Okay, that's a 39.7% increase in participants, and yet you have an 81.4% increase in your employees that are servicing this stuff, with a 5% increase in funding. So the math is not mathing, sir. You've bloated the bureaucracy and actually shrunk the ability of veterans to get education benefits. So you've done that. I know you've been in office for a week, and there's a reason your predecessor's no longer sitting there, because of rampant failure. It's just bad. You said you're taking immediate action to correct these things. What is a specific example of an immediate action that you've taken, Mr. Smith, to correct these deficiencies? Just one.
Sir, I'm very interested in improving.
All right, stop. No. That's not it. No. Maybe you're not catching on. We're not going to do this any longer. I'll be in office for at least a year and a half or whatever it is left, and I don't care. I honest to God, don't care if I'm sitting in this chair 2 years from now. I do care if you're sitting in that chair 2 minutes from now. You've mentioned accountability 4 times in your oral testimony. What does accountability mean to you?
Sir, we need to improve our ability to manage risk, the schedule, scope, and cost.
Are you aware of a
different programs.
single bureaucrat in the VA being fired for poor performance? One. Are you aware of one?
There are individuals that are terminated, sir. I can't begin to tell you
Yeah.
the reason.
How many guys have been laid out or gals have been laid off for abject failure? Yeah.
I would have to get some information from our HR providers.
Well, please do. So as a member of Congress, it is not my job to fire people in the executive branch. It's just not my function. I'm asking you if you're aware of people that have been terminated for poor performance. And that's just,
Yes.
that is not my job. Okay, good. And I would like to correct Mr. Amade. So it didn't blow up from $460 million to $960 million. It actually started, the bid that you guys put in was $25 million. $25 million when you could have just used the Pell Grant process to do the electronic GI Bill. But you put in a bid for $25 million. It is now $960 million, and I still don't think it's going to be done in time. My time has expired. I know that Mr. Pappas would like to do a second round of questioning, so the chair now recognizes Mr. Pappas for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I want to ask about implementation of a provision that was included in the Dole Act. I helped introduce a bipartisan bill. It's the Veteran Improvement Commercial Driver's License Act. And so this was included in Dole Act. It is based on the notion that we should be cutting red tape to ease veterans' transition into the civilian workforce and help them find long-term secure employment. So I'm wondering if VA has established the criteria and reporting requirements for commercial driver training programs that are seeking quicker approvals to open a new location, and how VA will track CDL schools' performance. If you can fill in some detail there, that would be helpful.
Yes, I can tell you that we are still working to implement that, and it is on track for March of 25, and I'd like to ask Mr. Ruhlman to give some more details.
Yeah, we're working with our state approving agency partners in order to develop everything that we do need to implement that program. And we are working to develop some measurable requirements for really all of these provisions, especially vet tech, because what you quoted was actually specifically almost verbatim from a GAO report. And that is something that we're trying to meet those requirements for the various provisions of the Dole Act.
Okay. And because this is job training, how will VA keep track of employment outcomes, and will VA take steps to hold CDL schools that have low outcomes accountable in some way?
Yeah, we are focusing certainly on veteran outcomes. That is something that we've been working on over the past few years to get a better gauge of not only graduation but employment, income, and seeing really how long they're in the job as well. That's certainly something that we want to do with trucking programs as well. Now, as far as actions to be taken if a threshold isn't met, the authority to suspend or withdraw approval is generally held by our state approving agency partners, which is why we would want to include them in the conversation. But I think that we all have broad agreement that we only want to send veterans to schools that have good, positive outcomes for veterans, and we will continue to work with them as we roll this out, have all the policies in place by March 30th, and then move out in the 360-day cadence as required by statute after that.
Okay. I really appreciate those comments. Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, if I could turn back to you. Committee staff traveled to Muskogee recently. As you know, VA employs 1,500 individuals there that receive calls for education service. So I'm wondering if you can build upon your testimony and give us the current performance of that site. How are we doing?
Yes, sir. I can tell you that they are working diligently to process all of their fall enrollments. I think that their performance is really solid, given the fact that they are working through a high number of Rudisill-inspired claims.
And is everyone on site and working in person, or are some of these people remote?
They are not remote, but they are still, they have until the 28th of April to return to the office.
And can you give us some more information, because we've heard these concerns, not just with this facility, but other VA facilities, just about the status of workspace. Is there enough workspace for 1,500 people to be in the office in person?
I'm not aware of the details in Muskogee, but I could certainly find that out for you.
Yeah, we'd like some more detail on that, because if VA is requiring all individuals at this office to be in person, and that could potentially result in a loss of productivity if we don't have adequate space for these folks, or greater expense to be able to build out space. I'm just wondering if VA would reconsider the decision for this particular facility, which seems to be operating at a high level of productivity that has made significant strides in answering calls and serving veterans.
Understood, sir, and I'm certainly sure that the acting undersecretary and secretary will consider that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think as we move forward, we do need to make sure that those who are experts in this work, who are frontline workers, who talk to veterans day in and day out, have a voice in this process, and that's one thing that I'll continue to try to bring out through these hearings, because I think too often we don't see those people that can give us important feedback about how to improve processes, and again, how to reach that end veteran who we owe a great debt to. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Mr. Barrett, the chair now recognizes you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Smith, Mr. Roman, listened to a lot of your testimony today. I brought this up in my meeting yesterday. I've been a member of Congress now, I think, 38 days, so there's a lot that I'm absorbing and learning about, but I can tell you that one consistent denominator of all of this is that we have these systems, these IT systems that are intended to be implemented that go exponentially over budget, fail to deliver, veterans suffer as a result, the taxpayers don't get the value for the money that they've sent here. We sit as a panel in a committee, ask questions, we don't get specific answers, and then the process rinse and repeat every 2 years. And the feeling is that the institutional members of the VA wait us out. There's a 2-year term, you know the clock's running, the hourglass is going through, wait 2 more years, new faces will be up here, new people will be there, they'll ask you the same questions and the process will repeat. I'm the chairman of the Technology Modernization Subcommittee. We've been looking at this electronic health record debacle that we've been facing, now this digital GI Bill, these consistent problems with implementation of large-scale IT projects. What can you tell us to restore, number one, that confidence and trust? I mean, I was looking at your biography and, you know, I'm an Army grunt that got elected to Congress. I've been here 38 days. I'm not an expert in human capital utilization and financial stewardship as you are. So help me understand how it is that the common denominator of all this is that we are always over budget, under delivering, and as a result of that, we have less to invest in the services that veterans have earned because we are spending money on these projects that fail to deliver.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your comments. I agree with you that that's a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. I think generally we need to be accountable to delivering these IT systems. We need
I would
to make
say
sure,
specifically, not generally.
yes, we need to make sure that we are identifying risks early, that we are setting scope, budget, and deliverable schedules that match the capability of the provider, and that we hold them accountable as well to achieve those objectives.
So why doesn't that happen? Like, it can't just be that we should do these things. We don't live in should land, we live in real world, and that hasn't happened, and it doesn't happen. It continues to not happen. And, you know, as they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result. I feel like we're there, and we've done that, and we expect a different result, and we expect accountability, and you promise accountability, but then we never actually see that in action. Did we follow, for example, the GAO's advice about how to implement these projects? I know they've done a lot of work around large-scale IT projects, and it feels like VA continues to disregard their recommendations and advice. Was that followed in this instance?
I am not certain, sir, whether they followed those provisions. I haven't had a chance to review all of that. I can tell you that the IG did an audit of our deployment of DGIB and found that we needed to make some improvements in creating an integrated master schedule, communicating better with the vendor, and ensuring that we're identifying early and often areas that could cause critical failures. I don't believe that happened before, but that's my commitment to you, that that's where I'm going.
So what actionable steps are we going to be able to have? So, for example, when you come to my subcommittee down the road, what actionable steps are we going to have by then to ensure that we have moved the ball forward in this regard, that we're actually going to stick the landing and get this thing done in the timeline that was promised, that we're going to, make a turnaround and get this done in a way that will actually deliver results for veterans?
We're working right now to address the findings or the recommendations of IG, but that's not enough. I want to really underscore the need to ensure that the culture of the individuals that are working on this project understand this and understand the expectation that we should be under budget, not over budget.
And would you say that you have the capacity to dismiss people who do not share that shared value with you?
Yes, sir.
And you don't need any further authority from Congress or the executive in order to do that?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll get back.
The gentleman yields back. So I just want to, we did have this hearing yesterday with Mr. Barrett. And do you now have a schedule for the digital GI Bill? Do you have a schedule? Like, boom, we're doing it on this day.
My understanding is that, yes, we've developed an integrated master schedule.
Do we have the integrated master schedule? Anybody? You got it? Do you have one? Holly? Nope. Okay, so if you have one, it would be great if you shared it with us because we have to fund that thing. And if we don't have it and you did it, and we've been asking for a year or so for this, that's a problem. Now, Mr. Smith, I understand you've been in this job for a week. And so, believe it or not, you're getting some grace from this committee. And that stops after this committee hearing. So the Veterans Affairs Administration is responsible for blowing through billions of dollars. To say that the VA administration spends money like a drunken sailor is not accurate, because when a drunken sailor runs out of money, he goes back to the ship. And we're not the ship anymore, pal. I hope that's really clear with everybody here. I believe that we have found common ground, Mr. Pappas. We are going to approach the executive branch, and I think it would make more sense if people return to their previous disposition prior to COVID. So if we have folks that were working remotely at this call center, and it's an old grocery store, if they weren't physically located in that building, then I don't know how, if they return to work, that would be beneficial. They're you said 500? Like 500 desks short in IT equipment. So we will take that for action, because that just doesn't make sense to me. And I think it's pretty clear. I mean, we're now under the Trump administration. I speak to you the same way I did people under the Biden administration. And I just don't care what political party you're affiliated with. I don't care. If this makes sense, it appears to make sense, and so we'll take that for action, sir. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Pappas, do you have any closing comments? Sorry, wait. The chair now recognizes the ranking member for any closing comments he may or may not have.
Thank you to our witnesses. And look, I've served on this committee for 6 years. This is my fourth term now. I've served during presidents' administrations of both parties, and I think the commitment has to be the same, to provide the oversight that Congress is required to do. And at the end of the day, I know that everyone around this table shares the same commitment to our nation's veterans. We may come at it from different perspectives from time to time, but I really join you in trying to seek that common ground and trying to seek better outcomes for veterans. At the end of the day, that's how our success is going to be measured here on this subcommittee and on the full committee, and I really look forward to the work ahead. So thank you.
The gentleman yields back. I don't really have closing comments other than the fact that I would like to thank Ranking Member Pappas and everybody for participating in today's hearing. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials, and without objection, so ordered. This hearing is now adjourned.